Hello, everyone. Welcome to Café New Canadians. Café New Canadians is a virtual event series where we discuss topics that matter to newcomers to Canada, things that are important for international students, immigrants, and newcomers here in Canada, and they can use those tips to succeed in Canada. Today, we would be talking about immigrant experiences. And let me tell you, Café New Canadians is brought to you by New Canadians. We're a TV and web series. You can watch us live on Omni Television if you're watching us in Canada. You can also check out our content on YouTube and on our website. You can see the handles right there in front of you. We talk about content related to immigration, settlement, education, employment, everything that, like I said earlier, matters to immigrants to Canada. This session and this series of Café New Canadians is actually sponsored by Destination Employment. Destination Employment is a program that offers meaningful employment to those who are looking for employment in the hotel and the tourism sector here in Canada. The participants get mentorship, they get free training, and to know more about them, you can check out destinationemployment.ca and register for the program if that's of interest to you. This session, now we will be talking about immigrant experiences in Canada and what are the barriers that are here for those who move over here and how is it that they can settle successfully. This particular session is also in collaboration with Next Stop Canada. Next Stop Canada is YMCA's online pre-arrival settlement service that prepares immigrants for their new life in Canada. Participants will get information, resources to help them make informed choices before they arrive. And for today's session, I'm your host, Shruti Dargan, and I'm so pleased to welcome three amazing guests today who are mentors of Next Stop Canada. And we'll be joined by Leo Gubak, Bernadette Abad, and Rakshak Maini. They will be talking about their experiences. They will be sharing tips for anyone who is planning to move over here. You can learn from their experiences. You can hear what they have to say about all the different ways that you can settle here successfully and have a great life. So welcome everyone. It's lovely to have you all here. Before we start introducing the guests, I'll quickly tell everyone over here who's joining us that you can share your questions with us. Our guest speakers will be answering those live. So if you're joining us on Zoom, you can share those questions in the chat section right here. And if you're joining us on YouTube, where we're live streaming this session, you can share the questions with us there too. On Zoom, we would prefer if you use the Q&A tab instead, actually. So welcome to Leo, Bernadette, and Rakshak. It's lovely to have you all here with us today. Let me introduce the topic a little, and then we'll move to introductions for all of you. So the topic, as we said earlier, is talking about immigrant experiences. Anyone who moves to Canada or anyone who moves to a different country, right, has a lot of doubts in mind. There's so much which is uncertain, unknown. And to figure all of that out, it's important to have the right information with you. Of course, you can find a lot of this on the internet as well, but then to learn from people who've lived that journey is just another thing. So that's what we're here to do today. Let's start with a round of introductions. Leo, how about we start with you?
Hello, Shruti, and hello, everyone. Bonjour, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are. So my name is Leo Gubak, and I'm actually born and raised in the Philippines. So I moved to Canada in 2016, and this year I'll be celebrating my 5th year here in Canada. So I'm a marketing and communications professional with over 12 years experience. And currently I lead people communications for Accenture, where I do strategic communications planning, executive communications, event management, video production, and a lot of writing.
Thank you for that. Would you also want to share a little bit about what your journey, professional journey has been like, or the highlights, or would you want to come back to that later?
Well, I've always been in marketing, so it's a career that I've built with since I was in the Philippines. And luckily for me, which I will share later, I was able to also land a job in my field and at the same level that I came from back in my home country.
Bernadette, how about you? If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional journey in brief, and because we'll, of course, come back to that later. And the reason we're asking for that upfront is so that anyone who's attending us today gets to know you better, and then they have the right set of questions for each of you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bernadette Abad. I'm a senior accountant working for a leading technology distribution company. At the same time, I've been volunteering with YMCA Next Stop Now, mentoring newcomers in the field of finance and accounting. I came here in Canada in January 2017. So this is my happy fourth year, and I'm very excited and share my experiences later with you guys. Similar with Leo, I landed a job just after 3 weeks of coming here. So I considered myself very lucky, which I'm going to share later.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Rakshak, how about you?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rakshak Maini. I'm originally from New Delhi, India. I moved to Canada, Toronto, in about 2.5 years ago. And back home, I belong to a family business background. We are in the business of construction equipment. We manufacture construction equipment back in India. And I was part of my business for about 7 years. So when I took this decision of moving to Canada, and I had to decide on what career path to follow once I land here. So one thing I used to love in my business was collecting orders, speaking with clients. So that was kind of an obvious choice for me to pursue a career in sales over here. So when I came over here, I started applying for jobs in the sales field. And I was lucky enough to land my first job with TELUS Communications, one of the leading telecom companies here in Canada, as a sales representative in B2B space, and have been working with them ever since, and actually would be completing my 2 years tomorrow with them.
Lovely. So it's 5 years, 4 years, and 2 years, if I'm not wrong. And it's great to have that diversity in the number of years that you've been in Canada. Also because we'd be able to speak to so many people who are at different points in that journey themselves, or like when they're planning to move. And I'm sure that others also. It's not just for people who are joining us from different parts of the world. In the chat section, I can see we've got someone from Nigeria joining us, someone from Thailand too. So that shows that there's interest in people all over the world for this session as well. But the tips and the strategies that you share today will also help anyone who's already in Canada, because there are mistakes that people make, there are new things to learn every single day. And I'm excited about this session. So let's also now hear a little bit about, you shared that when you arrived here, but I'd like to know, what were your first impressions of Canada when you moved here? As a newcomer, tell me a little about, Rakshak, let's start with you this time. Tell me a little bit about your preparation when you were moving to Canada, and when you moved here, what was the first impression like?
Okay. So I was actually quite fortunate enough that I was approached by a pre-arrival settlement organization over here in Canada, which was part of, through them, I got introduced to Next Stop Canada as well. So what happened in that is they actually sent out many links for me to participate in webinars like this one today, where I could actually prepare myself on how to build my resume the Canadian way, what kind of things to expect for an interview, how to actually apply for jobs which are relevant for myself, and not just endlessly, be a machine and endlessly keep on, applying for various jobs. So that was tremendously helpful for me. And once I came, this was a place that I had never been to before. I did not know any single person who lived in Canada. So I was alone in this far, far away land. And once I came over here, like one of the most fond memories I have is on the second day, I was, walking somewhere in downtown Toronto, and I could hear people on the sidewalk, talking in various different languages. So for me, as a newcomer who's trying to fit in, that was so reassuring that, if people from so many nationalities have come and have settled over here and they're living successfully, peacefully, then why cannot I? So this was one of the most fond experiences and memories of mine. And the second was I landed in December, so it was pretty cold. So weather was one adjustment that I had to do. But so far, cannot think of any negative experience. And also the people whom I used to speak with initially, I was very honest with them and telling them that I've just landed, and people were very helpful, very kind, and they guided me in the right direction. So I'm always thankful for that.
So you said that you attended webinars before moving, and then
Right.
now you're sharing that information yourself. So that's great. And of course, like you rightly said over here, that that diversity, I think the moment you land in Canada, you're able to see that diversity. The people are really warm towards you. Let's hear it from Leo now. What were your first impressions like? And also, what was the kind of preparation that you had in mind, or how had you prepared yourself before moving?
Right. So I had quite a bit of time to prepare before landing here in Toronto. And most of what I learned about Canada, I learned through research, mostly through the internet, also through videos, and also through attending sort of like a preparation, a pre-departure seminar back in the Philippines. So, and I also heard about stories from friends of my parents who were actually living here in Ontario, what Canada was like. But in my head, I was actually thinking that living in Canada would be like living in the US, like part of the Western Hemisphere, North America, and all that. But when I landed, I was actually shocked to find out that I was wrong. It's very different from living in the US, which in many ways I'm also glad that it's different from our neighbor in the South, but that doesn't mean that we don't experience all the other issues that they are dealing with. But what really struck me the most when I arrived here was that the sheer number or the sheer diversity of people in Toronto living here and coexisting peacefully was very, like what Rakshak said, it made me feel welcome and really made me feel part of the city. So it made me feel confident, and I actually did not feel that I was standing out, because there were actually a lot of people from all over the world who are like me too.
So you also shared the same point that diversity, of course, was a huge welcome
Exactly.
for you. Yes, and but like Rakshak said earlier, he didn't know anyone in Canada. Bernadette, did you? Before you moved, did you have any contacts at all that you were able to make via, say, LinkedIn, or in general? Were you aware of anyone living here?
Well, I did. I did have a contact here. One of my relatives is living here in Mississauga, actually. And then I have a mentor, which I partner with when I joined this pre-arrival services, which is actually free. So yeah, I came here in January, and coming from the Philippines, which is a tropical country, my initial impression of Canada, the moment the airport door opens to the outside, is that it's very cold, like the cold I've never experienced in my whole life. However, what I noticed is that the people, Canadians, they're very warm, from the airport to my accommodation to the very few people that I've met. Whenever they learned that I'm a newcomer, they would always say, "Welcome to Canada," with the warmest smile. And like Rakshak said, they're very helpful, they're kind, and they're polite. So that's my initial first impression of Canada. And of course, over the years of living here, I learned to enjoy the beauty of Canada in all 4 seasons.
And were there any challenges? Because I'd also like to understand, the first impressions, there's a little bit of anxiety that one moves with. Of course, there's a lot of excitement too, but after you reached here, and you said, I think something that you've all shared is the weather, which possibly was a challenge, but I'm guessing you do like it now. But besides that, were there any barriers? Barriers might be a strong word here, but were there any challenges that you faced in the first few, say, days, weeks of you arriving here?
I think one of the challenges that I faced when I came here is housing. During the first 2 months, we're fine because, as I said, we lived with our relatives. But of course, it will come to a point where you have to find start looking for your own place. At first, we look at listings for 1-bedroom condo and apartment, but it was difficult because the requirement for household income is quite high and their reference check is quite strict. In fact, we didn't have any credit rating because we didn't have credit that time. And then we didn't have landlord references because we're a newcomer. So that's the complication there when finding housing. Then what we did is to look for sites like Kijiji, and that's where we found our wonderful landlord who was also an immigrant herself and trusted an immigrant like us. So I would suggest for people coming here and having nobody, I would suggest look at sites like Kijiji, Airbnb, and probably Facebook Marketplace where people are posting places for rent. My only caveat is to read the fine prints, understand how rent works here in Canada, and know your rights as a renter.
And as you were sharing that, what was coming to my mind was that even with housing, there's now an additional challenge that everyone is facing, which is COVID and arriving in times of this pandemic. And, we'll come back to that in a bit. I see a question here, and I think, Leo, I'd like to ask you that because you mentioned that Canada is very different from the US. So Leila, who's joining us, wants to ask how exactly is it different? If you could tell us some of the main features. From your experience, what are some of the key things that you would say that pleasantly surprised you here?
Well, one of the things that is different that I immediately noticed was how people are very open, how Canadians are very open and warm to newcomers. You don't feel like you really came from a different country. They treat you as who you are and as part of Canadian society immediately. And it's a different feeling when, for example, when I travel to the US, I feel like I'm always an outsider and that people are always treating me like I'm not from there. So I don't get that sense of, welcoming attitude as part of like, maybe I'm just visiting, but still they treat me like I'm a foreigner. So that's one of the things, the big differences actually between Canada and the US.
Can I also add to what Leo just said? I went to New York, like downtown New York, like 2 years ago, and you were bumping to people in the subway station, and unlike here in Toronto, they would always say, "I'm sorry, sorry, sorry," and it's not even their fault. Like it's your fault that you bumped to them, but they're the one who's saying sorry. But in New York, you wouldn't feel that way. So just like what I said, Canadians in general, they're very polite, they're very welcoming, and like you would see the difference between New Yorkers and Torontonians. So yeah.
And very
Small
respectful
things like
too.
these. Sure. Yes. That's what I'm saying, that small things like these define and showcase the character of a place, right? Rakshak, let's hear from you also. You shared some of the great things that you experienced while right after you moved, from everyone being welcoming to have this first kind of an experience. But I'd also like to know if there were any challenges. The ones that we mentioned so far, besides that, if there was anything. This is to set the ground for this discussion moving forward, wherein we will be evaluating, understanding the different barriers that any newcomer can face in Canada, and with your help, find ways to be able to overcome those.
So apart from my other fellow panelists, what experiences they shared, one thing I would like to highlight over here is that I found it a bit challenging to get my driving license over here. So back home where I come from, we drive on the right hand side of the road, and here it's the opposite. The directions are also opposite. So it was kind of an adjustment to, sit on the other side of the car and drive, and also adjust with the local, driving laws, norms, and regulations. So one thing that I would advise to everyone is that, take few classes, practice with a trained instructor, and practice until you feel comfortable driving, because over here, when you're on the freeways or even while you're driving in the city, you have to be mindful of this, the speed limits, and you have to be in sync with other cars. Otherwise, you would be the odd one out, and that would only make your life difficult on the road. So when you come over here, if you are not, coming from a country which has the same side of driving as Canada, take some time, drive with an instructor, feel comfortable, and then go for your test, because I actually failed twice before I got my license. So this is one challenge that I faced, and would like to set expectations with people who are about to come over here. It's not difficult. Once you get used to it, you would actually find it more easy and less chaotic, because back home in India, we are honking endlessly all the time. There are street pets coming, like animals coming in between the road and all. But here you do not find those things. So yeah, it's much more systematic. It's just the adjustment that may take some time. And once you're used to it, you will definitely like it.
Yeah. And the one you shared is actually something that's not commonly discussed too. The top ones, the top challenges or the barriers that one faces might be employment, and once you have your first job or you settle for a survival job, how is it that housing, of course, before employment, housing would be the one. But this is something that plays such a huge role in your everyday life, once you learn driving over here. And so thanks for sharing that with us and bringing that to attention over here. A quick question that I see in the Q&A chat right here is, someone wants to know if you'd like to share how soon did you get your first job? So a suitable job for each of you. I remember someone said it was just 3 weeks. I think, was it Bernadette?
Yes, I did. For me, I got my job after 3 weeks of landing here. So I got it from applying online via Indeed. And yeah, but my partner, who is also an accountant like me, she got her first job through networking with another fellow Filipino. So it's different from everybody. But I mean, if you come here and you want to look for a job, you need to exhaust all pathways to get the job.
Sure. So let's tackle this one first, which is employment. This is a big one right here. Leo, I'll come to you for this one. Tell me a little about, what was it like for you to secure your first job? And just tell us a little bit about your experience to begin with when you were applying for jobs. Were there any challenges that you faced?
Sure. So, unlike Bernadette over here, where she was very lucky in finding a job 3 weeks after landing, I didn't get a job after 5 months from landing here in Canada. Well, now I know that it's quite a long time to get a job because of Bernadette as an immigrant. And all I know then was my savings were running low. And if I didn't get a job sooner, it would be a hot mess. So what did I do in the first 5 months? I enrolled in a bridging program. So bridging programs are like a crash course in getting your career started here in Canada. There are lots of organizations offering bridging programs in Toronto or wherever you land in Canada. I'm sure you will be able to find one. There's YMCA too, which you will learn later. So I enrolled in that bridging program. And even before I started in that course, I was already applying to jobs. I was sending my resumes to every company that I thought that I would make or I would be able to be part of. So, but I didn't receive invitations immediately for an interview. It was only through the course in the bridging program that I discovered that I was doing a little something wrong in my resume, that I wasn't tailoring my resume for the job that I was actually applying for. And sending out generic resumes won't really get you anywhere. So I pivoted, redid my resume, and eventually those callbacks came coming.
So that's the perfect example of not letting it bog you down and, staying at it. And you mentioned resumes, you mentioned the right format of resume. We'll come back to that to understand how a Canadian resume is different from, the resumes that we may have known from our home countries. Rakshak, I'd like to also know from you, when it comes to employment, when it comes to securing the first job, what was the experience like for you? Were there any challenges, and how did you try to resolve those?
So basically, one thing that I came to know about is that, like I said, that I wanted to pursue a career in sales, but that was not the end to it. Now, within sales also, there are so many fields which are regulated fields. What I mean is that before you can actually apply for a job, you need to get a license to be able to practice in that industry. For example, if you want to sell automobiles, you need a license for that. If you want to sell homes, you want to become a realtor, you need a license for that, and so on and so forth. So one thing that I would like to share is that before you apply or plan to apply for any particular field, do your research and get to know whether there is any prerequisite required in order to apply for a certain job. Because if there is one prerequisite, then you better start preparing for that first, so that you're gauged with that, with yourself, and that would not be a roadblock for you to secure your first job. So this was one of the challenge that I faced, that even though sales is one of the most generic industries, the systems over here are so thorough that they have also been regulated to ensure best practices in the industry. So now I had to narrow down my search to the field, because when I came, like Leo mentioned, I was also fortunate enough to know about these bridging programs, and I found a couple of them which were in my field itself. So I was actually doing parallel exercises. So I was on one side, I took post-arrival services, I prepared the CV as per the Canadian requirements, and then I started applying for jobs. One thing that I did was I was going for quality over quantity. One thing I was told is nowadays all these job recruiters, they are actually first a software scans your resume. It sees how many words are matching with the job description as posted in their offer, and based on that, your CV, your resume will either be shortlisted or it won't be. This was one of the tips that was shared with me. So what I started doing was, for each job that I was applying, I was making sure that I'm incorporating keywords that were used in the job description, so that my chances of my resume getting shortlisted increases. This is one thing that I did. Apart from that, I also was, carrying a backup option of, like getting, if in case I'm not getting a job, I wanted to go into a bridging program which can actually accelerate my career path over here. But luckily, I applied for about 10 jobs, and those were pan industries. I did not specifically stick to one. I applied, for example, to TELUS, which was in telecom. Then I applied for WeWork, which is a co-working space. And then I applied for Yelp, which is a food-based organization. So I was applying for various industries. And with God's grace, I was called by TELUS. And then I went in for my interview and landed my first job. I think it was within 2 months of me arriving to Canada. So I was quite happy about it. But yeah, like the challenge I said, check for any regulations in the field that you're planning to pursue your career in.
So, of course, it's a few things that definitely stand out from what you said, and I'll just repeat those for anyone who joined us late during the session. We're talking about employment, and for that, we've shared that, someone got a job right here in 5 months, someone got it in 3 weeks. The one who got it in 3 weeks, we'll be coming back to you for resume tips. Something clearly worked. And Rakshak also shared that it was 2 months. And the key thing to remember here is that, do your research, see if your profession is regulated or not in Canada, because it might not be the same way for you back in your home country where you're moving from. It could be regulated right here in this country. And also diversify your job search and reach out to spaces wherein might not be exactly your field, but where is it that you can apply those skills. Now there are a few terms, when we talk about employment and education and settling in Canada, there are a few terms that come up, which is networking, of course, is one of those, but we also talked about bridging programs. Just to make it clear to anyone who's attending this session from a different country, Leo, could you share a little what exactly is a bridging program? How is it different from another course, a degree that one might apply for in terms of education?
Okay, so a bridging program is usually a 3-month course wherein they will introduce you to the corporate culture here in Canada. They will.
I think we may have, there might have been a network issue. So Leo, are you with us now? Great. We're unable to hear you, so I think you might have to just check your mic settings again. We'll come back to you if this takes a while, not a problem at all. Yes, I think I'll let you figure that out. Meanwhile, I'll move to Bernadette for my question about resumes. We will understand. So let me just complete what Leo was sharing over here. Bridging program is not exactly a degree in terms of your education that gives you it is some of these also provide a certificate, but it's a short-term program that helps you understand those skills, practical skills that help you here in Canada in your profession. It connects you to different people within the industry. It gives you those practical skills, information about those, how it works in Canada. You of course have experience in your field that you're bringing with you when you move to the country, but things might be a little different here in terms of how things function in the workplace. Some of the processes might be different, the people you can reach out to for employment. So it helps you bridge that gap, as the name suggests. And when Leo is back with us, we'll see if he'd want to add anything to that. But quickly moving to you, Bernadette, I'd like to know from you, for resumes, what are your, of course, today with this session, we wouldn't have so much time to delve deep into this topic of resumes, which could be a session in itself. But some key things, your top 3 tips for a resume that works well in Canada.
Yes. Shruti, most of us have this tendency when applying for a job is to look at the role, let's say it says accountant, and then browse through the job description without actually understanding what the company needs. And then after that, attach this one resume we've always have and never updated, and then just click apply. And then praying that somebody from the other end would open our resume and take a chance on us. But we don't realize that just by doing that, we didn't take a chance on ourselves. What if the job is the job we've always been waiting for, and we didn't get a call for the interview because we didn't work on our resume? So my suggestion would be not to limit ourselves. Rakshak touched this already. Not to limit ourselves with one like all-inclusive resume. Tailor your resume. Work on it. I have one resume for each job post that I want to apply. And in total, I have more than 20 myself. So you want to show that you understand the business requirements and you are the right fit to solve their problem. That's what resumes are for. And it's very important. I think I've proved that when I applied for an accounting instructor post. My first job is an accounting instructor, and I've never been I never had any professional accounting instructor or experience before. So that proves that my resume actually works. Think about it.
Yeah. So there are some great things that you and Rakshak earlier, when talking about resumes, also shared. So keywords are a big thing. Before another person in the HR department looks at your resume, it's more likely that it'll go through a software that scans it for the keywords, for the most important things that you may have mentioned. And of course, to have the right things mentioned, tailoring each resume for the kind of job that you're applying to. Leo, is there something you'd like to add here for resumes? I'm sorry, I think we're still facing some trouble with your mic. Would you want to just try switching it off and turning it back on again?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you now. Leo, we can hear you well now. So if you'd like to share something about resumes. So sorry about that. I think we'll just come back to you then again. So while we're talking about resumes, and there's also something that comes about in this discussion, which is Canadian experience. It's not something that companies or recruiters would outright ask you for. It's not something that you need to list in so many ways in your resume, but it is somewhere a requirement, and a lot of people do not get a job because they lack that Canadian experience. So what is it? It's if you've worked in Canada in the field or in a job in that particular profile that you're applying for. Now, the dilemma right here and the irony of it is someone applying for their first job in Canada will not really have experience. That's why it's their first job in Canada. So, Rakshak, let's hear it from you first, and then I'll come back to Bernadette and Leo. What would you want to say about this? How can one work towards that? And a question I see here, let's hear it from you, and then I'll come back to the question.
Regarding Canadian experience, yes, even before I came over here, that was one of the biggest dilemma even I had with myself, that how am I going to land my first Canadian job? Because anyone and everywhere that I read or speak to, they are only talking about Canadian experience. So one thing that also, I came across was that you can, there's so many volunteering opportunities available over here that you can go for. And it's not just, in my eyes, Canadian experience, what employers are looking for is that how comfortable are you over here in dealing with local people over here. As a newcomer, we have our own prerequisites. Our mentality is fine-tuned towards the country that we are coming from rather than the country that we are now in. So what a person is basically looking for is that how well incorporated you are within the Canadian society and the system, and how easy would it be for a person like you to work with. And if they're able to see these things in you, these qualities in you, I think you can overcome the Canadian work experience barrier. Like, I'm saying this thing because I was able to do it myself. I actually owned it. Like, when I went for my interview, I told the person who was taking my interview that I just landed 2 months ago. I was absolutely truthful with them. I did not try to conceal anything. And they do notice your body language. They do notice your confidence. They do notice your frame of mind, your ethic towards your work, how dedicated you are. And sometimes these qualities may overpower the requirement of having a Canadian experience. So what I would say is, be confident whenever you're going for an interview. They have already seen your resume. They must have found something nice. That is why they have called you for this interview. So now what you have to do is you have to be confident while you're going to meet them. You have to show them that you can be a beneficial member to the team. You will be contributing to the team, not just taking away from it. And if they see these qualities in you, they will definitely be interested in hiring you. And if you're facing any issues, there's so many volunteering options available. Like, people who are part of this webinar, I'm sure that they would also be, facilities like post-arrival services would be available to them. And through these facilities, these services, they can definitely, ask their mentors to associate them, to connect them with some industries over here where they can actually volunteer and gather some of that experience before they feel confident, for applying for a job.
Some great tips right there that you shared over here. Another key thing for overcoming this barrier of Canadian experience is volunteering, And I see a question right here from Caleb, who is joining us here on Zoom, that would you recommend a volunteering program for a newcomer before getting a paid job? Leo, let's try talking to you again. Would you want to take this one? Yes, we can hear you very well. So welcome
Awesome.
back.
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. So the question right here is, would you recommend volunteering, a volunteering program, or applying for a volunteering position to overcome this Canadian experience, or generally before getting a paid job? Is that something that helps? What's your take on it?
Right. So if as much as possible, I would recommend exploring volunteer jobs, as this will, get you familiarized with how the Canadian work culture is. It can be a small organization or a big organization. What's important is you get to practice your soft skills, how you interact with people. And that's where you get to learn more about how it is to be working actually in a Canadian environment.
I see a lot of questions here which are asking about the process of immigration, either for nurses or in general, how one can find a job. We will try our level best to answer all of your questions. In case we're unable to answer a few towards the end as well, we'll reach out to our guest speakers for tonight and share those questions with you in the upcoming conversations or the information that we share with you after the webinar as well. Um, Moving on, I'd also like to discuss, so we've so far discussed volunteering, we've discussed resumes, and I know these are really big topics. We'd have to just touch upon these today to give anyone who's planning to move just an idea of these and leave them with this thought so that they can do their further research on these topics. The next one would be networking for me. So networking is something that you hear about in any session, like Rakshak said earlier. If you attend any webinar like this one, you'd hear about the importance of networking. Once you move here, you'd hear about the importance of networking. Once you have a job, you would hear about the importance of networking. So it helps you at different stages. Bernadette, what's your take on how is it that best that one can network? I'd like to understand from you.
Oh, so networking is really essential in getting a job. You can learn about the job opening even before it is posted online through Network Insider in that company. A network insider is somebody who works there and learns about the job opening before everybody else. There are many instances that the company or the management of the company would inform their employees that somebody is planning to retire or resign, and encourages their employees to refer somebody they know who would fit the job description. And typically, employees are happy to recommend because if their candidates gets the job, they would get reference bonus, So having a network does pay. In my case, I reach out to those alumni from my university from back home who have settled successfully here in Canada. And I've also reached out to YMCA and checking out what are the current job posts and trying to meet new people.
Thanks for sharing that. Rakshat, moving on to you. From your experience, how would you say that networking helped you in your career or in getting that start?
So, like I said, I did not know anyone over here before I came, and networking obviously is one of the most important factors for someone to become part of to have some local contacts at your disposal. So I came across a bit of unconventional for me was I came across these websites which they host various networking get-togethers in the city, both professional and social. These are a great opportunity for a newcomer to come visit, attend these events. They might be free or they might be paid, but what it provides you is an opportunity to have a nice conversation with people who are already living over here. So there are websites, if you guys want to note it down, you can search for these events at meetup.com. Then the second website which I came across was eventbrite.com. So these are two of the websites that actively, hosts of these networking events actively post their upcoming events. One can search as per their field. You will find tons of networking opportunities, fan industries. You just have to put the right keywords in. And I'm confident that you would get some options which are relevant to you yourself. So take advantage of these networking events. I know that when I came that time, we were in a pre-COVID era. So I had the opportunity where I could go to these events and meet people in person and talk to them. But right now, since we are in a post-COVID era where everything has gone from physical to all, online. So now people are hosting such similar webinars that we are in one right now. Take advantage of these, and this will be a very good opportunity for you to speak to other people, ask them about their experiences. You never know, you might just get along with someone and that person might be able to help you in getting a starter job or whatever job in their own company, or spread a word in their own circle that, hey, I met this new person. He's just new to Canada or she's just new to Canada. Let me know if you see any job posting in your company. I would like to share that person as a reference. And people like, my co-panelists have been, telling this again and again that People here are definitely quite helpful and supportive. It's just about connecting with the right ones, and then you will see your network doing wonders for you.
So, with this, and to just take from what you just shared, I'll ask Leo, for networking to work, it has to be effective. What are your top, or what's your one top tip that you would share for networking to be effective, besides what Rakshan just shared? And with that in mind, that a lot of times what happens is newcomers tend to meet someone, connect with someone online, and then quickly mention that I'm looking for a job. That's like asking for a favor. But for networking to work and for it to be efficient, it has to be a relationship that offers value on both sides. So the key question here, which I'd like you to address, is how can one network effectively and offer value, even if they're a newcomer? How can they offer value in that relationship?
Right. So when you establish a contact already, make sure that you really get to know that person. Remember that you are building a relationship here. And like what Shruti said, it's not good for them to ask for a job right away. For all you know, I mean, your contact cannot really give you a job directly, but they can open doors for you to get those jobs. So as you get to know them, ask them how their life in Canada is, what their interests are, what their job is. Be genuinely interested in what they do. And then when you see an opportunity to help them, to give advice or offer your expertise, ask them if you can share it with them. This will prove how knowledgeable you are in your field or how experienced you are in your career. And hopefully that knowledge will help them, recommend you to their company or to their other friends so that you can be part or so that you can benefit from that networking relationship as well. Remember that your contact is giving you time and being generous with it. So, and we know that time is precious. So we also must be conscious of this, that this relationship is, built on that.
I'd actually like to save some time towards the end for the questions that we see in the Q&A tab here, and quickly move on to job interviews too, because that would be a big one again in the employment sector when someone is looking to apply for jobs. So your one top advice, Bernadette, for acing a job interview, especially when everything is virtual these days during this pandemic. So for a virtual interview, what would be your top tip for acing that?
Well, as always, master the warm up questions like tell me something about yourself. And then prepare for the tough ones like tell me something about your weaknesses or tell me an event where you had a disagreement with your boss, right? Of course, you want to show you don't want to show up in the interview unprepared. And of course, you want to show as well how much you want the job. And with the virtual interview setup, you need to always come dress up just like you're going for an actual physical interview. Look at the camera and always smile. Project that you want the job and you're ready for it.
That's a great one right there again. Some lovely tips that all of you have shared with us. What I would request is, Rakshat, you shared a few websites with us earlier. The tips that you've shared too. If you'd like to share any resources with us, any of these tips with us, do let us know in the communication after the webinar as well. We'll compile the ones that you share with us and send it to our attendees for tonight. Again, to understand now for job interviews and for job search in general, I'd like to wrap up employment and also discuss besides employment, besides housing, if there are any other challenges that are key here and how to overcome those in just a few minutes. I know it's going to be a challenge, but we will do it. So Leo, from you, any last job search advice that you have for our attendees tonight?
So I think what I did was I tried to look for job openings directly in the companies I wanted to be part of. So get your list. It can be from 1, 20, 50, and go to these career sites of these companies. There you will learn about their history, what they do, and of course, the jobs are there. And it helps me, it helped me because that's really gives you an idea of what this company is and what and gives you an information on what you can share with this company. It narrows down your search if you look to those companies that you're targeting.
And besides the ones that we've discussed, Leo, while I'm talking to you, is there any other barrier that you'd like to list, which is something that newcomers are bound to face when they move to Canada?
I just wanted to touch on networking on a bit, just to add to what Rakshak said earlier. Join professional organizations. If you're a marketer, there's the Canadian Marketing Association. If you're a communicator, there's the International Association of Business Communicators, which has chapters all over Canada. So look for these professional organizations that you can join in, and so that you can expand your network too. They will also introduce you to jobs and also learning sessions that you can benefit from when you join them.
Sure. So thank you for all of your tips today. We have discussed a lot of barriers that one might face. Hopefully, if they don't face, that's the best scenario. But employment is a big one. It may not be a barrier, but it is a challenge that one has to overcome in Canada. It's that first big step that helps you settle successfully, integrate successfully too. We also touched upon the lack of access to networks, the unfamiliarity with the culture. So networking, volunteering are great ways to be able to do that. Let's take some of the last few questions that we see over here, and I'll just ask you to then share your last bit of advice with me. So the question here is, we talked about regulated professions and everything, but you said, so Leo, for you, you said that you got your first job in 5 months. Did you take up a survival job in that time? A survival job would be something that one would take to work in a field that may not be directly their field, but they're able to get some experience for the time being before they move on to a more targeted job within their field.
I did not take a survival job, primarily because I was actually also studying. I was in the bridging program, and also I enrolled in a digital marketing certificate. So if you have the resources to do it, you can also study. But if you absolutely need to do a survival job, why not go do it? If it allows you to, survive and continue living while you're looking for a job, why not? Just make sure that this survival job that you are going for would actually help you down the line get into the job that you really want.
Sure. Bernadette, one for you here, a quick answer if possible, would you recommend anyone in their home countries right now to start applying for jobs from there itself, or to just prepare their resume and apply for a job once they're here? What's your answer?
Well, I think either way. I mean, you can apply from back home. We have websites available, job banks, Indeed, etc. And you can also come here in Canada and apply it. But I think the level of success would be much higher if you're here in Canada.
And Rakshak, anything that you'd like to add to the conversation right now about job search, about the final words that you have before we end the session?
So that I'm also a mentor to newcomers in the sales and marketing field for Next Stop Canada. And one of the advice that I give to every person is that sooner or later, you are going to land an interview. So be confident about that, trust in the process, and don't get disheartened if the process is taking a little bit more time. So now you've landed your first interview. Now you're going to be sitting face to face with your employers. So now one thing that everyone should keep in mind is whatever you have written in your resume, they have already gone through that. They know what you have done in the past. So you don't need to validate that again when you're sitting face to face with them and tell them the same things that you have mentioned in your resume. What I encourage everyone to do is to have a great conversation, one like we are having one right now. Just go there, talk to them, be comfortable, consider them as your fellow friends. They are not going to bite you. Don't have any nervous feelings. And whenever you're speaking, they're asking you any questions. Try to incorporate as many examples as you can from your previous experience, because all of us before coming to Canada, we have been doing something, and we have been adding, some things to the table for our existing employees as well. And we have gathered lots of experience while doing so. So never undermine that. Try to get as many examples of empathy, of how you helped out a customer, or how you helped the company come out of a very complicated process. Share your experiences. That's where the main value comes in. And last but not the least, always have a positive, frame of mind. Laugh and smile as much as you can. Be well dressed, and also in your small little ways, try to make the employer excited to hire you. Because if they are excited to get you on board, if you are showing them value enough, the job is not far away from you. That's all what I would like to add in the end.
Thank you for that. I'm sure that you covered so many other things that Bernadette and Leo would have wanted to add. So, just in one word each, I would request the two of you, what's that one motivational keyword that you'd like to leave our audience with? Leo, in one word, what is that they should remember? Positivity.
Positivity.
Bernadette, what would it be from you? I think your mic is on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, without repeating what Leo said, I want to encourage people to be positive and wake up each day with the right mindset.
So thank you to Bernadette, Rakshak, and Leo for joining us today, sharing your tips, sharing your experiences. Those have definitely helped a lot in the attendees. I can see from the messages, everyone's thanking you for your time today and the experiences. Like this session of Café New Canadians, we hope that you enjoyed this one, and we bring sessions to you every week. So do watch out for those. You can connect with us on our different social media channels as well. Like today's session, I would want to tell you this particular session was in collaboration with Next Stop Canada. And to talk about Next Stop Canada, I'd like to welcome Abra Ashfaq, who'd tell you a little bit more about the program.
Thank you so much, Shruti. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, hello everyone. As Shruti just mentioned, my name is Abra and I'm an information and referral specialist at Next Stop Canada. Before I talk about the program, I just quickly wanted to put it in the context and share why it exists. So it was discussed throughout the session by panelists that preparation is the key. And within the Canadian settlement sector, it is an understanding that the process of settlement does not only start once the immigrant arrives in Canada, but starts as soon as it is decided that they will be moving to Canada. And for the same reason, programs like Next Stop Canada exist to assist approved immigrants with their arrival preparation and, prepare you for any challenges that you might face, as again discussed by our amazing mentors throughout this session. So I'm not going to go in the depth of that, and just quickly introduce the program itself for anyone who would like to register for the program. So basically, we offer online information and orientation about life in Canada, and as well as connections to a wide range of newcomers, support to adults and youth between the ages of 12 to 19 who are arriving in Canada. Doesn't matter which part of Canada you are arriving, so we offer services nationwide. As per the eligibility criteria to enroll in the program, it is pretty simple. Again, you just have to be outside of Canada, but approved to immigrate. So to prove that, we do require a document to prove your status and to verify your information. And you can find the list of approved documents on our website, which I think we will be sharing in a bit as well. And again, you have to be 12 years or older. There is no restriction on estimated arrival date and no English language level required as well. We do offer services in multiple languages. If you cannot speak English at all, we'll still be able to assist you in some ways possible. And now just to go over exactly what services do we offer. So there are a few services that we offer within our platform and, to the client one-on-one as well. So there is a live chat option where you can just connect and ask timely questions right there. You're usually, when you start the live chat, you're connected with an information referral specialist and you can get your answers right away. There's a personalized settlement plan based on we assess your needs and what is exactly your requirement or what kind of support do you want, and we offer you a personalized settlement plan based on that. There are live webinars just like this one where we do invite guest speakers to share information on housing, settlement, taxes, and there's like a lot more. Then there are online resources such as videos, blogs, or e-learning courses. And there are topics forum and mentors forum where mentors like Rakshak, Leo, and Bernadette offer their support to newcomers. So you can just connect with them and ask your questions right there. And of course, we have our youth mentorship program, which is a bit different from the mentors forum. So for this program specifically, we match the youth client to a youth mentor who was once a newcomer themselves, and they just guide them through life in Canada, what it is like to be youth, like education, work, and all sorts of things. And all of these are supervised by our staff, and obviously a parental consent is also required because they're so yeah, that's basically everything about Next Stop Canada in a nutshell. And if you do have any more questions, please feel free to email us at info@nextstopcanada.ca, and we will be happy to answer all those questions for you as well.
Thank you, Abra, for that piece of information all about the program. And with that, we've come to an end of this session. I'd like to thank Abra, Leo, Rakshak, and Bernadette for their time today. And we just hope that you benefited from this session. And for any other questions related to this, reach out to Next Stop Canada. You can also stay in touch with us for our next sessions that we have every week, and stay connected with us on our platforms. Café New Canadians, this virtual chat series was sponsored by Destination Employment, which is a program that helps newcomers to Canada get into the Canadian hotel and tourism sector. For more information about that program, you can check out destinationemployment.ca. Stay connected with us, the Café New Canadians and New Canadians platforms as well. All of these social media networks that you see on your screens right now, we would be happy to assist you there as well. You can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter of New Canadians to get information in your inbox. And if you're joining us for this session in Canada, you can also watch us on Omni Television, where we air our episodes of New Canadians, a TV and web series. You can check out this content, the one session that you've just watched, and also all other resources that we have on our website and on our YouTube channel as well. So thank you once again to each one of you who joined us. And when you do log out, you might be directed to a survey. Do share your feedback with us there, and that will help us serve you better the next time. Thank you. Stay safe.